Here for the March is the Read Across America Month, and at our different elementary schools, they had different ways of engaging our learners and community in that. Here we had at Pomeroy, I think it was, we had our school resource officer as well as the chief and also a sergeant there to read with the different classes. We also have seen in the last 6 weeks or 2 months a great rise in the number of students who have made tremendous accomplishments, and notably at both the local, state, and national level. And along that way, it includes creativity and competition. In the top picture, we are featuring our Kurtner Student Business Fair. And students created a business, and then they had families and other students come and hear their pitches and learn why what they did was something that should be an investment or purchase the goods from it. In the bottom picture, we have our varsity soccer team, which had not been in a state playoff since 1999, and under our new soccer coach, Mr. James, who started, I think it was just 3 years ago, they not only won the Division 5 championship, but in 9 days, they went to 4 different playoffs, and 2 of those playoffs, they defeated their opponents, and then finally, the last one was when it was called, and we know that they're going to be excelling in the future. And it's just really wonderful to see that our soccer program has a renewed enthusiasm. Here in this photo, we have our senior varsity boys champions. There with Coach Rencher. And they were really fun to watch. I loved seeing how, as a team, they were able to pass the ball to each other. Sometimes I felt like I was watching the Harlem Globetrotters, and a couple of them have really great three-point shots that they do. And they just stayed as a really strong team till the end. And they were their SBCAL champions, and the first public school to defeat a private school in the Western Catholic Athletic League against Bellarmine. That was outstanding. That was since they adopted open play, yes. And you see in our total enrollment that we continue to have an uptick in our growth overall. Here we have our daily average attendance from the beginning of the year to March 11th. We have just a slight decline by 0.07%, at 95.46% average daily attendance. I will say, shout out to Milpitas High School. Yesterday's attendance, because I did take a look at yesterday's attendance across the district to see if the VTA strike impacted it. It didn't. As a matter of fact, Milpitas High School was at 97 point something, and Cal Hills, I believe, was at 98%, and Middle College High School, 100%.
Superintendent Jordan, remind me, how much of funding loss for each percentage that we don't have students in the classrooms?
For each individual student who doesn't come to school on a particular day, it's approximately $60, or is it 80 now? I think it's 60. Pardon me? 85. There we go. They know. However, a 1% of increasing the average daily attendance amounts to approximately $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And with the first semester, we were averaging 97%, but we've seen a drop in that, which is part of the reason why CBO Recanose budgeted on the conservative side for her projections for next year. Then I want to point out, as was pointed out by CBO Reconose and her team, that we have federal, and also many of our teachers also pointed out the impact of the economy. And at the federal level, while we know the executive orders are moving in the direction of reducing the title funds, title funding is earmarked for specific groups of learners. Title I is for those learners who come from low-income backgrounds. Title II is for the adult learners in the classroom who are teaching them for their professional development. And then Title III is English learners, and Title IV, forgetting what that is at the moment, but those, pardon me? Thanks, arts and science. We don't know if the executive orders are actually going to become reality because it takes Congress to make those changes. Whereas earlier, as Trustee Naka pointed or asked about during the budget study session, the grants are fully within the executive orders. And so that's why we received news that those grants are in jeopardy. At the county and state level, we know that items such as tariffs can impact the goods and services and the cost of that, increasing those costs and therefore creating more uncertainty in the economy. And was at about a month ago, along with Trustee No, we were at a press conference in Santa Clara County with our 3 congressional representatives, Zoe Lofgren, Sam Liccardo, and Ro Khanna, along with the county manager. And they were talking about the impact potentially of funding cuts at the executive level. And the local, the county is planning on having reduced services because a great deal of their budget comes from the federal. And then it's similar at the state level. Some of the funding that the state gets is then in turn funneled into the school district. So while it might not be a direct cut to the school district from the federal level, we will feel the impact in other ways as state and local budgets are less, and then they have to figure out how they reallocate. Another piece to note is that the state revenue, as CBO Rocanese and our director, Vo, pointed out, is that the state revenue is filled by 3 streams. One is personal income tax, the other is sales and land use tax, or sales and use tax. But the other one, and this is part of the reason why the state of California experiences, some might say, kind of a volatile swing in their budget, is because it's based on the capital gains or losses, which is in part why during COVID, where I remember just in April, May of COVID, we were expecting to have a $50 million shortfall. Just in our area, it was like $55 billion for the state. And then through COVID, what happened is people all jumped into the tech, and then the tech increased and there were capital gains. And so now, at that time, the state of California had quite a bit of money, which is why we saw COLAs of 12% and 8%. And now, if you're watching the stock market, you'll see that as one news outlet described it, that fear appears to be leading the way in people selling off, and that is in turn going to create losses rather than gains, which will impact the revenue of the state of California, which then turns into impacting the school funding. So these are all things that we have to take into account. And then also, I'm glad that we were able to have discussion around our budget study and that we were able to see what our budget stabilization plan is overall. And I just want to alert the board that we will be doing some reorganizing at the district level And this will result in a two-step process where we have some people doing different roles and one position, as we saw on the slides, a coordinator position being noticed of a layoff for next year, so that we keep that management staffing where it is now, which is 13. And it was 16 last year. So we are taking into account where we can maximize the resources that we have, and then also where we can reduce. And we all, as we see on the board agenda, there are also reductions coming from classified, and then on certificated, we are staffing tightly. And so with, thankfully through attrition, we won't need to do layoffs, but we are looking at being down about 7 FTE across the district as a result of a soft decline in enrollment and also staffing, as I said, more tightly than we generally do. And that concludes my report.